Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to another episode of Amsterdam Talk Season 3, Episode 23. So today we're coming all the way across the globe on the other side of the continent with Mr. Dale Allen Rouse. How are you doing, Dale?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here with you. You always have such interesting guests.
I mean, yeah, the show is always what it is. I bring interesting people on to tell their stories and we go from there with it.
Well, that's what I love about it. Every episode is kind of like its own vibe.
Hey, and that's why I brought you on.
Good.
We've been trying to. So before we get started, tell us about yourself.
All right. So I am a real estate coach and shamanic practitioner. And you're probably wondering, okay, like how does that all work together? Because it was through the like business world and kind of studying manifesting and all those kinds of things in business that I arrived to an interest in like energy work.
Mm-hmm.
So it was from there and coaching agents and doing all of that, that I kind of discovered that path. And then I started kind of like searching out other areas of the world where they kind of study the same thing. And I kept being taken back to shamanism, which is just pure energy work. Like it's so interesting because a shaman is the doctor of the soul, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, what is the soul? It's just energy, right? And so, it's really studying that which animates the body and, how we live and what we're vibing with in terms of energy.
Okay. So, and when did you start? Get into that.
Well, I've always been into it my whole life. And I've just had an interest in that kind of stuff. But it wasn't really until I started writing my books in
Mm-hmm.
2020 when the pandemic happened. I was like, oh, well, I guess I have the time. Like, let's do
Right. I
something
think
with
we all
this.
had the time.
Yeah. So I decided to kind of like write my story, if you will. And it was through that process that I kind of was being led back to some early times in my life. I have an uncle who's a full blood Indigenous Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
And he raised my cousins on a reservation. And that
Okay.
was always so different because I was being raised in your typical kind of Christian environment. And
Right.
so that was always kind of like magical to me. Like they were having this whole experience out in nature, and that was like their church. And, anyways, so that's kind of where it all kind of got started from as far as my interest in it. But when, like I said, the pandemic hit, that's when I really started kind of chasing that down a little bit more. And my books kept wanting to talk about that. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that is. So I kind of sought out some guidance along those lines and actually went to a shaman school. Did you know there was such a thing?
Nah, nah, I didn't know that. And
Yeah.
and for those who are watching, we're not talking about Charmin with the C. We're talking Shamanism,
Yeah.
shamanism, not Charmin toilet paper.
Right. This is the shaman you can squeeze. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, okay.
So, but that's where it all started from. And then when I started writing my books, I ended up going to a shaman school, and things kind of just took off from there. And so, by the way, I do not consider myself a shaman by any means. I'm just a student. I'm just scratching the surface of this to see what I can bring from the knowledge of the indigenous people, of the people who were on this land before we were, and tap into what they knew because maybe I can learn something there. Maybe it can improve my life and improve my mood, improve my business. Like why not? Check it out.
Got you. But before all of that, the first line you said that you grew up in the 1970s homophobic religious family.
Yeah. My father
How
was a Baptist minister.
how was that knowing that you're a part of the LGBT community?
How was that?
How was
Well,
how was that growing up? How did you actually like decide to say, "Mom, Dad, this is what I am. This is who I am."
yeah, that was, I basically ran away from home, is the short answer. I just knew that that wasn't going to fly as I sit here in my Golden Girls t shirt and big yellow glasses. I
Hey,
knew that was not going to work
right.
in the environment that I lived in. I just heard and seen too much. And so this is, I mean, not to go off course here, but it is kind of an interesting story. I started taking tap dancing classes down at the local, dance school because I was overweight. My parents wanted me to try and lose weight. Anyways, flash forward, I ended up running away to a ballet school halfway
Right.
across Canada at the age of 17. I hadn't even graduated high school yet. And then I danced professionally all over the world for like 20 years. I was a backup dancer for Celine Dion, and I was on Broadway, and I did like all these crazy things. But it all started from, and that's what I think is so cool about life, is it all started from the worst, which gave me the best. And it's in all of our like trauma and in all of the stuff that we don't want to look at
Hmm.
where the richest gifts are, I think.
Right. So now you went away. You danced for the ballet. You was in the Broadway show Fosse, right? You was in Fosse. So as you got older, were you able to go back home and say, "Hey, this is who I am now"? Your mic muted. I think your mic went mute. Yeah, you muted yourself. Still can't hear you right now. This tends to happen once every show. So you might want to probably back out and come back. So meanwhile, while he's getting his technical difficulties there, if you haven't missed it, he is in shamanistic core shamanism. Basically, it's about being flexible and learning about spirituality and things of that nature. But in the same token, that he just stated that he had to go away for a while because he knew of his ways, that he grew up in that 70s homophobic religious family, and that he knew he couldn't actually stay there. So he went tap dancing in classic ballet, whatever how you want to pronounce it, ballet. Did it for 20 years. I'm reading his bio. He did it for 20 years. He was on Broadway with the show Fosse. Um, Here we go. Still can't hear you. We don't know what happened. It's just one of those days. Hold on, I don't know if we can hear me out there. It's just one of those days. Okay, I can hear myself. It's still on mute. But anyway, how y'all living out there?
Okay, how's that?
There we go.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. So basically, what I said was, so after 20 years of ballet, were you able to go back home and just say, "Hey, Dad, Mom, this is who I am"?
Yeah, well, yes. Long short answer, yes. I did, you know, but like I was saying, my father died in 2004. We hadn't fully reconciled all of that, but there's a lot more layers to it, because there was, you know, there was after my father died, my mother said that possibly my father was gay. And
Mm,
that, I think, a lot of her frustration and what she took out on me was what she was trying to deal with and reconcile within her own marriage, right?
okay.
So, anyways, thus all the books I write. Oh, here's some trauma.
I got you. So that's what I'm going to go to, because the back of your book says that you seek to challenge the status quo through modern day fables that study and dissect energy work. What do you mean exactly by that?
Yeah. So the way that shamanic practitioners look at thing is instead of seeing it with their eyes, they feel it with their other senses. So they'll look at the energy signature of a person before they believe the words or believe their eyes of what they're, looking at. They will sense the person and feel the person in the way like an animal almost would when they come up to you to test whether you're like a safe person to be around. It's using those senses, which is very shamanic, right? And so,
Hmm.
what was I saying?
You was
I
talking
got
about
so frustrated with
shamanic.
me.
You was talking about shamanic, about the back of your book.
Yeah. So yes, I seek to challenge the status quo through that lens, because when you can, like, some people will say, well, this is love, and other people will say, no, this is love, and they're polar opposite. But when you look at not what is right versus wrong, but what is loving, like what is energetically vibrating on a high level, that's very
Mhm.
different than looking at something that's vibrating at a very low dense, and like, it's super clear when you're looking at it through the lens of that, like, is this a high vibration, is this a good feeling, is this love, versus
Right.
is somebody being kind of crappy.
Got you. Got you. So once you figure out, low and high, how can a person is a person able to make a person that's low get them high, or bring a person that's high bring them down? Are they able to do
Yeah,
that?
that's the whole point of it. Let me just challenge you with one exercise. Okay. So
Okay.
we can use our imagination for a lot of different things. In fact, in shamanism, it is one of our most powerful tools. It's often a way in which we try to access
Hmm.
information outside of ourselves, right? To learn something new. And where that comes from, you don't have to question. If it's new information, new experience that you can learn from, that learning is still valid, right? So think about your imagination
Hmm.
as being extremely powerful, right? And when we tether our imagination to the past, to things that have gone before, when you're thinking about, oh, that didn't work out right, or, oh, I have this bill that's due, or, oh, this isn't, going on, and she said that, and then this, and you're going through and using your imagination for harmful purposes, or you're sitting in your room and you're feeling fear, but there's nothing in your
Hmm.
environment that should be causing you fear. That's you using your imagination for harmful purposes. You're hurting yourself with your imagination because there's nothing in your room that is causing you fear or pain. And yet you're feeling that. And you're feeling that because you're
Hmm.
tethering your imagination through the ego into the past, into what has gone before. And that is only a place where you experience lack, right? And not wholeness is in the past because it is
Hmm.
gone and it has informed you, right, by man. And man will always provide lack. That's just who we are as kind of having this ego brain, right? So when we take our imagination and take it out of the past and we get fully present to the moment, right?
Hmm.
And suddenly you start to just shift in yourself because you're not interacting with your mind. The chatter goes away and you just get
Right.
still and present. There cannot be fear if there's nothing in your environment making you feel fear, unless you're
Right.
using your imagination for harmful purposes, right? And that's what I try and really work on with people, is to not harm ourselves anymore and to chase the better vibes. So if you're in the present moment fully
Hmm.
engaging with your environment and not engaging with your mind, but then you start to look forward. Because when you start looking forward to your life and start looking forward to what's coming up in your day and looking forward to those things, what are you doing? You're actually calling it into being. You're manifesting it, right? And that's where the business, coaching and shamanism kind of, like, I found an intersection there that was so interesting. Like, I just didn't expect to find it. And so when we are seated in self, right, just being in our own
Hmm.
bodies and allowing the outside world to inform us and work on us and not work on
Hmm.
the world, right? We can't, expect to have any sense of happiness if we're working on the world, right? And we look at everything as far as just informing us, and we're seated in self and looking forward to our day, and we're only talking about what we're looking forward to, right? Because then again,
Right.
like, you start to manifest it. So if you were just in this show, like, talking about what you were excited about and what's coming up and what you can't wait to see, right, that's going to be a very
Right.
different vibe, right? And it's
Right.
the shamanism, it always looks at the vibe. What's the vibe? What's the energy signature? What are you vibing with, right? And so
Right.
you start to change your vibe and the way that you're looking at things, because you're what? You're looking forward to what has
You're
yet to
looking forward.
come, and you are making it, you are creating it and manifesting it.
Okay, so I mean that's a good answer right there. To me, if you're looking forward to something, of course your vibe is going to be high. If you're not looking
Right.
forward to it, your vibe is going to be low.
Right.
Like, um, I just to say, to be honest with everybody, when the alarm clock rings tomorrow, ain't nobody looking to go to work.
Mhm.
They're looking to go back to sleep. So the vibe is a little low. And I always used to tell my supervisor, if I can get here, I'm good. Once I can get here, I'm fine. I can't, if I can get here, you got me. That's it. I got to get here first.
Yeah.
So on
Uh-huh.
the way there, it's a little different.
Yeah.
Um, it's a little different. So, all right.
But
So,
that's just like one example of energy work. Because when I say energy work, people are like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" I'm like, it's how to light yourself up, how to remain in high, more joyful vibrations throughout the course of your day, no matter what's going on. Because the outside world, shouldn't be, informing what's going on in here. You should be master and commander of you, and that's really what my YouTube channel is really all about: is learning how to master your mind and be, in the best vibration possible to truly manifest what it is that you want in life.
okay. So we have the book your first book, Handsome Devils,
Yes.
and it deals with a lot of, there we go. Handsome Devils, it deals with a lot of spicy topics, such as the birth of conversation therapy in 1886.
Yeah.
But it's told from perspective of an unusual character, Mel Vaughn, a part where with Nordic pagan. Can you explain how this all came together? How did that come together?
Well, indeed. So I wanted to have a story that was told from the birthplace of conversion therapy, which is what, faith-based communities have done for many years,
Hmm.
to clear expression. They just tried to change it, to fix it, right?
Right.
Um, and so the same year that Nikolai Tesla left pre-Nazi Austria for America was the same year that conversion therapy was first invented, right?
Hmm.
And so it's an interesting like mix. And I really wanted like Nikolai Tesla, yes, the Tesla cars, right? Or he's this one here. So
Hmm.
I've been doing reverse. So
Right.
that's Nikolai
Right.
Tesla,
Right. Right.
and he's the science, but the story is actually told from his secret lover, who is Melvin Vaughn. And so that's how the story begins. And they're small books. They're all like 100 pages and they have pictures. It's like a glorified comic book. But that's how that starts,
Got you.
that whole
Oh, so
series. Yeah, and I have a bunch of other books in this series too, because after he saves a bunch of the queer kids that are running around from conversion therapy, he teaches them shamanism, right? And this is kind of the vehicle I used because people are like, "What is shamanism? What is that voodoo? I don't even know." Right? So I
right.
kind of
So
use these books to explain how that looks in a lifetime practice, right?
right. So in that book that you just stated with Nikolai and Melvin, they did a lot of queer things that you stated, and they saved some kids. Like, or do you feel these books are positioned correctly as gay romances?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, all of the stuff I write is spiritual fiction. Spiritual fiction is basically fables, right, that you use
Hmm.
to explain a spiritual, aspect or idea. And so that's what I try and do with my books, so that the reader goes through a series of like ahas, like, and the character's awakening becomes the reader's awakening, if you will.
Mm. And how does all this come about? Is it like you basically sit around, you might watch something on TV and you piggyback off of that, or this just comes to you mentally, just like I'm just going to do this?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because I really spend a lot of time. I probably spend a couple hours a day just thinking and just kind of being with myself and allowing new information. It's a big concept in shamanism, is to empty ourselves from ourselves, and once we
Hmm.
empty the old, we can allow in new. You can allow in new information, and so you often can learn that way by removing yourself from yourself and seeing what's there in that void. And so it's there I often, like, in that kind of deep meditation place, that I, get these ideas that become the books.
Mm. Okay, so you have a bunch of books. So what is the ultimate goal to Handsome Devils?
To change the world.
To change the world? They
Yeah.
change the world how? I mean, I understand. Like, change the world how?
Yeah. So because again, all of the shamanic ways look at things by their energy signature. And if you look
Hmm.
at certain institutions as their energy signature, rather, are they right or wrong, it becomes
Hmm.
very clear in terms of like what's about love. And I also hope to kind of like show people what another, because most people just know, you know, Christianity in some version, whether it's Catholic or whatever, and they know like maybe Mormon, and they know like they don't know a lot of other spiritual practices and faiths, and that's why it's been so interesting in learning about the indigenous ways and the what they believed in, and just because I very much also arrived to this work as a shamanic practitioner as a skeptic. Like I really wanted to go in knowing this stuff so that I could translate it from like their ways to the best of my ability, to the best of my knowledge, into a more Western world where we could have access to the same channels of information that the indigenous people did, because they see things very differently and they understand things very differently than we do. They don't see things built on, you know, mental constructs as real, right? If it's only built
Hmm.
on minds, and it can collapse when those minds stop thinking about that thing, right? They don't see that thing as necessarily real. So it's just like all
Right.
these really different perspectives of the way nature sees things versus the way that kind of the Western world sees things.
So the Western world and nature. So basically, you would say it's almost close to like smoke and mirrors, almost.
Yeah. Well, it's really, I mean, they talk about going behind the veil to understand the energy, right? So they kind of go into the matrix of like we've seen in the Matrix movie, but they literally and that's why like animal tracking is such a big thing in their practice, because again, they're going into their environment, they're communicating with their environment in a way that we're not taught. Yet
Mm.
we all clearly can learn if we're open to the idea, because it's all built on one thing. It's that one thing, that inkling, that knowing when you go into a room and you know that something's off, that you
Hmm.
know in your gut the energy in that room is weird or off or creepy, but there's something going on, right? That knowing right there in your gut, that is the portal, the channel to shamanism. That is the knowing that they dive into on such a deep level that it's truly like like you almost can't believe it's real sometimes when you have certain experiences with these really like powerful shamanic women, and you it's hard to explain unless you see it firsthand. I try and do the best I can in my books and read the books.
No, no. So I gotta. I wanted to ask you this. So would this be shamanistic, like when you walk in a room and everybody gets quiet,
Well, it's more your gut feeling that you feel about that. That's the shamanism, because it's everything informs you for a reason, right? And if
right?
we're willing to truly listen and get down into that feeling of what you're being informed of, that's the
Hmm.
shamanistic part.
I mean, because the gut feeling is if you walk into a room and everybody gets quiet, 9 times out of 10 they were, speaking about you, and it
Yeah,
wasn't in a good way.
right.
So I'm figuring that may be shamanistic because when you walk in, your gut is already telling you like something ain't right in here.
You know, it's that knowing. It's right there in that knowing when you know something's off, that their kind of whole practice is really built on.
Oh, okay. So this built on this one practice.
Yeah, this knowing, developing this knowing within you, your gut, and learning to trust how your gut is communicating with you.
So with you knowing all of this, being with a core shamanist, how many times has your gut been wrong, or has it ever been wrong?
They don't even really participate in the concept of wrong. I know it's so truly foreign to us, but there's nothing you can do that's incorrect according to them, and they are just there to support and love and lift you up in whatever decision and whatever it is that you're chasing after, or whatever experiences that it is that you're having. Now, I will say, when I have been reading people, like, because we can do shamanistic readings, with tarot cards and things like this, which is built on the same gut knowing, right?
Hmm.
And there have been a couple times I've been off with that, but more times than not, I mean, because again, I've been working at developing this skill for years now, and
Hmm.
it's amazing when you find that channel of information, how much is being informed to you through just the presence of others.
Okay. So all of this shamanistic, all of this free spiritual will goes back to you being diagnosed with generalized dystonia.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So it's so funny because my former boss, Celine Dion, and myself are the only two people that I know with this condition. And it's very strange. So we have a little like weird bond there.
Mm,
But I developed it in 2014 was when I was first diagnosed with it, and it's a neurological movement disorder, and it's in the same family as Parkinson's and MS. Now, as you can see, I don't really have it that bad.
hmm
It's more episodic for me, whereas for a lot of people, they live with it 24/7. It's generally known as stiff person syndrome, and what
hmm
happens is you lose the fluidity in your body, and your hands like start cramping up like this, and you become like a pile of rocks. Like you don't have any fluidity in your body and you can't
Right.
move. That's why it's called stiff person syndrome.
Okay. So you bring up. I'm just gonna take a wild shot in the dark. You bring up Celine.
Yeah.
Is there any possible way we could talk to Celine right now?
No.
I'm just. I'm just. No. I'm just asking. See, I'm like, I'm just saying that maybe we possibly could.
Yeah.
Get her to sing the song from Titanic.
Yeah, for sure. I haven't talked to her in years though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought you might like how you. I maybe thought y'all might have talked to each other earlier today.
Yeah, no, we've sent messages, like especially because when we were doing the show with her, a lot of her people like are still in my life, but she's not necessarily. But we have like people that we pass messages through and things. So like her backup singers and all of her people that are in her family that were part of the show. I'm still in touch with on Facebook and whatnot.
Okay. All right. So in book two in the series of Army Awakens,
Yeah.
the one with the scary child with the green glowing eyes on the cover.
Yes. So this is where in the story Melvin is left behind in Austria as Tesla goes to America. So it's part historical fiction because you actually learn about Nikolai Tesla's life as it was actually unfolding, and I kind of tethered the story to his timeline. So, anyways, that's where this all begins, and so the whole premise of these books is to teach people how to win a war without fighting,
Okay.
right? And so he teaches because he's in pre-Nazi Austria, right, with all these gay kids that he's like stolen from the government.
Mm,
And so he teaches them how to become really powerful shamanic warriors. And so you can see here, like this kid has a gorilla, right, as a spirit animal, and so anyways, it's the story of this kid's awakening, and then the other ones that he kind of brings into teaching them how to win a war without fighting, right? Because in shamanism, we never have an opinion. We
mhm,
never we never try and move ourself off of home base, right? So we're
mhm,
always calm and peaceful, and so to get angry is seen as more harmful to ourselves than to others. So they have to, like, again, learn how to win a war without fighting. And so this next book, Where the Warrior Lives, is very kind of heady stuff, like how you win a war, like this war between your ears, right?
mhm.
How you win that war so that you can win the war outside of yourself,
Right.
right?
Okay. So you go back to back to the kid with the scary green eyes.
Yeah, sure.
The scary green eyes. What was the thinking behind releasing this book, both one
um
and two together?
yeah, I really wanted, because the books are so tiny, like they're 100 pages or less, they're meant to be read like on a flight. You can easily read it cover to cover in 90 minutes. Like it's not a big commitment. And so I wanted to put out a couple of books so that as people like were kind of following the story, that each one would kind of be available within a month or two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these children in this book is any of this like related based on your life as far as like, anything to these books?
This, not really. This one is very much written like kind of like a kid's book, but for adults.
Okay.
And it really is just a vehicle that I use to explain what is shamanism. Like, because most people they maybe heard the word, but they couldn't tell you like what that actually is and how that actually works in life and how peaceful these people were. I mean, it's so interesting to be in a completely different paradigm of energy when you are with them, because again, they don't judge, they don't, see anything that you're doing as ever wrong. Like,
Hmm.
they don't participate in low dense vibration words or energy.
Right.
So anything is like either neutral or a high vibration, and so you learn to become much more joyful in that space, because that's all there is.
All right. So what you said, they don't see anything wrong, or I mean anything wrong in shamanistic. So as you stated, you ran away from your traumas and all
Right.
this as a kid back in you growing up, how you grew up. So all the kids in your book now, if you had to say something
um,
to them that were real life characters, would
yeah.
you tell them to be like, live who you are, let your parents know,
Yeah,
what are you
and
doing?
yeah, and I think that these books are very much a love letter to like my inner child, and to providing safe spaces for everybody, and to encourage more environments of inclusivity of everybody. I don't care if you're purple, like welcome. Like we just have to change the world. And the way that I address it a lot of the times on my YouTube channel is I say that we can either continue the fight, or we can evolve the fight. And that's what I'm interested in doing. And that's what I use these books to kind of illustrate. What does the world look like as it evolves in its consciousness to, get away from judgment and prejudice and these really dark, dense, things, and learn to be just more loving and accepting of one another.
That's understandable. I mean, I guess it's 2023, so everything is possible these days. It doesn't even matter. But I guess is what you're trying to say is basically leave the judgmental shit and all that stuff alone. Just let that person be them and be who
Right.
they are, living their truth.
Right, exactly. And just make safe spaces for everyone. And don't feel like you have to participate in conversations that are taking place in low, dense vibration energies. Like, if somebody is bringing that negativity to you, like, you don't have to engage. Like, it's more powerful to stand and stay silent, right, in the presence of crazy than it is to participate in crazy.
Right.
Right?
And that's how I feel. Some people walk around, they can't live in peace. They need to live in chaos.
For sure. And that's their energy signature. So like, if you take a second to think about it, like, what's your energy signature? And that's very much what we spend a lot of time, like, just honing in on. Like, what is my vibe? What is my energy signature right now? Like, in the conversation with this person, with this stranger, or with this person who has abused me my entire life, what is my energy signature in their presence? Am I a space for healing and love, or am I bringing crazy from the past into the now and creating chaos?
Correct. I mean, like you said, you just feel the vibe. Maybe one thing is off. Like you said, you're sitting in a room and you're creating these scenarios yourself through your own mind. Room's empty, nobody's there. You're creating your own scenarios, but you
Yeah.
feel as though one thing is off, and
Ah,
it could change everything. As
yeah.
far as like if you enjoy drama and chaotic, that's you. You
Yeah.
want peace and happiness, that may be somebody else.
Right.
Some people just don't give a shit. Just say, hey, I'll go with the flow.
Right. Exactly. The main thing I want people to know, though, is that is a choice. Your
Right.
vibe is optional. And if you don't think it is, like, I want you to, like, because I did all of this on YouTube from back when I was really struggling and kind of suicidal. Right. And so you really have the opportunity to watch me in my own personal growth and development go from crazy, and to really going through these steps and practicing this stuff for a long time, for years now. And you can see that it is possible to evolve as a human and as a spirit, right? And that's what it's all about. And it only takes two things, right? You just need
Mhm.
two things in order to evolve yourself: curiosity, what's going on with you,
Mhm.
and honesty about what's going on with you. And if you can adopt those two things, you yourself can teach yourself a lot about you, solving your own problems, quite frankly.
Right. Right. So you say you work on your YouTube channel is described as a spiritual disco.
Yes.
Where can we find you, your books, and where can we find these immaculate dance moves?
Oh, yes. Well, so just go to youtube.com/Dale Allen Rouse. All my stuff is like That's the one nice thing about having a kind of unique name. Like the handle was always available.
Right.
So everything's just at Dale Allen Rouse, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. I'm not really on Twitter. I don't know. I never went that way.
Oh man. So like you said you viewed the show. This is the part where we come to where we talk about the horrible dates. If you listen to the show, we got a segment called I Be Damn, where we talk about horrible dates. Nobody dies or anything like that. It's normally just funny.
Right.
And we're gonna ask you how would you to handle that how would you to handle this situation if it was you. So I got this today. Let me find it because I got it today. Let me put it right here. I got this today. So say, hey Rod. So I'm on a date with a guy that I've been crushing on, and the conversation is going rather well. Great jokes, chemistry, the whole nine. I could picture us being a wonderful pair. You can insert daydreaming music if you like to. As dinner comes to a close, the server brings the bill, and my date quickly hands over his credit card to pay the tab. We continue our delightful conversation when the server returns with a look of confusion and leans over to my date to tell him his card has declined. Holy shit. My date is absolutely stunned as he tries to understand how the money somehow disappeared from his account. He calls his bank to straighten it out and learns that his auto debit slash bills were taken out of his account. That's why he doesn't have any money. Since my date had no money, I had no choice but to offer to pay. So I reached into my purse to grab my money, and guess which wasn't there? My fucking wallet. Why? Because I switched purses and my wallet somehow didn't make the switch. As if the night continued to get any worse, I had to throw out a lifeline by calling my grandparents who live near the restaurant and ask them for money to cover the bill. You talk about embarrassing. So that we could leave the restaurant without them calling the police on us. My date handed over his driver's license to the server as collateral. We make our way to my grandparents' house before I even get all the way there upstairs to knock on the door. I hear a barrage of laughter coming from the front porch. It was my grandparents laughing hysterically as I walked with shame. My grandmother had tears in her eyes. Needless to say, the date ended on a bad note. I never talked to him again, and my grandparents clowned me for a very long time afterwards. Now that I think about it, the guy never even offered to pay my grandparents back. Shaking my head. Sincerely, must make certain that I have my wallet at all times.
Yeah. Wow. That's a whole a whole list of chaos.
Right. So if that was you, how do you handle that?
Oh, just laugh it off. I mean, at that point, there was so many things that were going wrong. It's like one of those Broadway plays where everything goes wrong. Have you seen those? They're doing those now, and it's kind of hilarious because they do the play, but then the scenery is falling down, and they're having to continue to. Anyways, it was like that.
Mm, wow. No, I haven't seen that yet. I've never seen that. But before you go, you have a Golden Girl shirt on, we see.
Yes,
Will you be partaking in their tour that's going around the United States right now? Or have you seen it already?
I have not. I'm sure if it comes to Palm Springs, I will see it.
Okay. All right. Just saying because every night somebody turns that channel on every night and I gotta turn that shit off. Every night. I hear the song in my sleep and I just not tonight. Not tonight. I don't even know not tonight. But definitely thank you for coming through, Dale.
You are so welcome. I'm so happy to be here. Sorry about the technical problems, but
Nah,
I'm glad we got it worked out.
no, it's fine, it's fine. So when you do your things as far as like your books and stuff like that, and you have conversations, do you have it like somewhere like on Facebook where you just open up a group and just start talking and things like that, where I could send people to?
I have well, if I would do that on Facebook, right? So
Hmm.
that's probably so if they joined, facebook.com/Dale Allen Rouse, that's where all my updates and everything that I'm going to be doing. I do want to start doing live tarot card readings with people. I just think that would be really fun, and it would give me a great opportunity to kind of continue to practice, what it is that I do. So
Put it like this. If you can, if you want to do that, I'll let you do that here. I can find some people for you to do it here for if you want to, because we've been looking to do that. We had what the hell readings did we have last month? I forgot. We had some readings last month. I can't remember, but it was basically um going off of your numbers. It was some type of
cool.
numbers reading.
Right, I saw that numerology stuff. Yeah.
Right. it was going off of that. So
Yeah.
if you want to come back with the tarot cards, you can. We was looking for
Definitely.
somebody to
That
do
would
it.
be super fun to just line up a bunch of people and just go down the row and kind of like have them each draw a card and then read it for them. That would be super interesting.
We can do that. I can set it up
Because
easily.
I also find that watching readings, you can really learn a lot about the human experience and how others are going through things and what they might be going through. You can learn from as well. So I find that interesting.
All right, so whenever you're ready, just like I said, we do it on Tuesdays. Um, just let me know when you want to do it.
All right, sounds good.
All right, thank you for coming. And if anybody's looking for him, he said he got an easy name, Dale Allen Ross, where the handles are never taken.
You got it.
Next week we're taking a break, but we'll be back the following week. And June 6th, we're going through. No, that's not it. I want to say they got the guy that got kidnapped and stabbed, but that's not the episode. Um, I think it's about emotions. I can't remember. I can't see the calendar, but just tune in June 6th. That's all I could tell you. Thank you again, Dale, for coming through.
You bet.
It's always a pleasure. And I'll see you guys in 2 weeks out there in the land. Good night.